We began with the ritual of tearing the ribbon, an expression of the loss that all who knew Jerome Dinell suffer, a loss of this presence in the world, feel torn, and while, as with the ribbon, which can be repaired, there will be healing, those who were touched by him, their lives will never be the same. Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized in endless pain. The gift of spirit our loved one gave us cannot be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, we know that some of their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing us comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. You who heal the brokenhearted and bind up their wounds, grant comfort and consolation to these mourners as they face their grief. Fill their lives with the acts of loving kindness and truth, which serve as the genuine memorial to our dear Jerry. The deep bond of love will remain unbroken, and we say, Amen. We're here to honor the memory of Jerome Dinell, and we are here to comfort the mourners, Bonnie Dinell Diamond, Judy Dinell, Dale Vanderwerf, grandchildren Nick and his wife Keely Diamond, Aaron and Jeannie Vanderwerf, Rachel Vanderwerf, Mark and his wife Alana Sapoznik, and great-granddaughter Tova Vanderwerf. In this moment, we support them with all our love. And the child asked, "Tell me of life." And the sage answered, "Life, my child, is a mystery. We do not ask to be born, nor do we even understand the meaning of birth, of creation. We grow and we experience life's pleasures and pains. We love, and slowly, oh so slowly, we come to realize that we have become, that we are. At that moment, we humble ourselves before the mystery of life and quietly say, though I knew not, I have been granted the most precious gift of all, the gift of life." And the child asked, "Tell me of death." And the sage answered, "Death, my child, is a mystery. It is the inevitable return of the gift of life, the gift which came free to us. We live as the trustee of that mysterious being, of that unexplainable becoming. Yes, you and I are but the trustees of life. We nurture it. We delight in it. We give it to others. And at the appointed time, we sadly, yet with pride, return it from whence it came. The beauty, my child, is that we are what we have become, remains long after the gift has been returned. It remains as a precious keepsake with our loved ones who live on. These difficult times, we turn to the words of others, modern words as those I've just read, but also, and perhaps more importantly even, the enduring, ancient, eternal words of our tradition, the beautiful poetry of Psalms, which provides us comfort and consolation. A moment I will chant Psalm 23. familiar to so many of us. Bottom line from Psalm 23, the comfort that we find in Psalm 23 is the sentiment that we are never alone, that there is always a divine presence with us. In life, it is found in the souls of the people around us, people we knew deeply and loved for long times, or those we encountered for just a moment. All around us, there is holiness, there's divinity, there is God. And when the journey on this earth ends and continues into a place of mystery, we believe that there too we are not alone. There is a shepherding presence guiding us to our next phase, both beyond in some mysterious place and here as we live on in the memories of the people who knew us. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binot eshe yarbitzeini, al mei menuchot yinaleini. Nafshi shovev, nafshi shovev, yancheni b'magle tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begei tzalmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yinachamuni taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi levaya ach tov achesed yedefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Our rabbis taught that there are three crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty. But they emphasized that the crown of a good name exceeds them all. The book of Ecclesiastes says, a good name is to be treasured above precious oil. Wealth, health, even life passes away, but a good name lasts forever. It is this view that the Talmud teaches. Monuments need not be erected for the righteous, Their deeds are their memorials. They will be remembered and revered for the kindness they have shown and for the love they have given. Jerry is a shining example of what it means to be a mensch, a good person. I want to honor Jerry's name with words of remembrance, and so we'll begin with grandson Nicholas.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Diamond. I'm Bonnie's son, and Jerry was my grandfather, but I just called him Gramps. Jerry Dinell was beyond any shadow of a doubt the most important and consistent male presence in my life, though as I look out there, there are a couple of the other of you here, which is a blessing for our family. Man, was I lucky to grow up in Park Forest. Good job moving us out there, Gramps. Me and my moms moved into my grandparents' house on Winnemac when I was around 3, and then we moved to Area B in the co-ops when I was around 5, which was just 5 minutes away by car, so close. I'm pretty sure that after helping raise 3 daughters, Gramps hadn't planned on raising any more kids, and then all of a sudden he had little old me running around just being a dumb boy, making all kinds of noise and eating everything. But he kept a good sense of humor about it, and once my mom started working with him at Steel City Furniture, me and him and Grams and Moms often had dinner on Winnemac, and I think that's when I really started to appreciate him. My Gramps was stubborn and fair. He was kind and gentle. He was quiet and funny. And he could also be grumpy and funny. And real talk, those were some of my favorite times. It was particularly fun to earn his disdain over a crossword puzzle, right? Like once I'd run out of steam, he'd love to take over and then make all these reproving noises as he hit answer by answer. And yes, he invariably finished those puzzles. He loved to poke fun at me for moving to the north side. I remember once I did or said something he didn't like, and he said, "Don't be such a Cubs fan." And while I was rolling on the floor, he meant that. Gramps not only taught me to be ready to work, to really be ready to bust my tail when necessary, but he simultaneously taught me how important it is to work smarter, not just harder. He first taught me that while moving a sectional sofa at the store, and he taught it to me again when I was working in the back office, and he taught it to me again when I moved to the sales floor, but that's not the most important thing he taught me. Jerry Dinell was a world-class role model for loving your family, especially your wife. It was a blessing to have had his example in my life. I will do my best to live up to his standards, and man, I really miss him. So on behalf of our entire family, thank you all for being here.
Next, I'd like to invite son-in-law Dale Vanderwerf.
Jerome Dinell. Some people called him Jerome, Jerry, Gramps, Dad, Zadie, Grandpa Jerry, I don't know, the list goes on. He was committed to the 3 F's, not that kind of F. He never swore. Seriously, never swore, that I ever heard. talking about family, furniture, and food. And yes, that's true, not necessarily in that order. I have a memory, which is really a memory of my late wife, Terry, that she shared with me. When she was a child, she recalled the many times that her father was on the floor, crawling around on all fours, playing with Terry and most likely her sisters. I can't attest to that. It wasn't my memory, and they were, playing horse, get up on his back. So he was a fun dad, and he loved his family. I'm not going to say too much about his commitment to furniture. Most of you probably know that he was connected to Steel City Furniture, and he worked well into his 90s, and he was very committed. Once Jerry and Shirley returned home from a trip, and if my memory serves me right, it was Niagara Falls and Canada, and they had gone to see plays and different things, and he was so anxious to tell us all about the trip. So he said, okay, let's hear. And he started off telling us the best restaurant that they found, and what they ate for dinner, and what they had for breakfast. We never really heard anything about the sights. It was all about the food. And he was always anxious to tell people about a great place that he discovered. So, and we all loved to listen. He was a good man, a family man, and we will definitely miss him.
Next, I'd like to invite grandson Mark Sposnick.
So I'm Mark. I'm Judy's son. I had a feeling about some of the things that other people would share, so I decided to go kind of in a different direction than, well, mostly just food, because there's lots of stories about that. But I just wanted to share just a few things that Nick left out that I learned from my grandfather. So number one, once a door closes, my grandfather is going to drive off. So what happened was, we were at Old Country Buffet, which is funny. He loved Old Country Buffet because the food, not so good. But we were leaving, and I closed the door. I don't know why, but I decided I needed to get in on the other side. So I got out of the car, closed the door again, and then I was at Old Country Buffet by myself. It's not as fun as it sounds when you're like 8. He also found this particularly funny. I did not at the time. Now it's one of probably my favorite memories. Number 2, do unto others as you would have done to yourself. So, I had to have been maybe 10. It was Christmas, and all I wanted was a bike. Well, I opened my first present from them, and it was not a bike. It was a box. Just the box. There was nothing in it. So then I got to open another box that there was also nothing in. 5 boxes later, there was nothing in any of these boxes. I was very unhappy, and then my grandfather, chuckling, said, well, maybe there's something upstairs for you in our room. And there was my bike. I tried this on my good Lord. On my goddaughter, She was probably too young for me to have done this, and she brings it up and pretty much every Christmas not to do that again. I don't remember if I liked that, but she definitely didn't, so I'm not going to do that anymore. So I learned that. And then lastly, I learned that winning doesn't always feel as good depending on what you're winning at. So my grandfather, whenever we would go out to eat, said that we would have to eat all of our food on our plate if we wanted dessert. Apparently, some of my other cousins got away with this. I, on the other hand, took a completely different route. I was going to eat my food and all of my dessert just to prove him wrong that I could do it. This did not go well for me after we got home. This was a pretty regular thing since we also lived in Park Forest. But I'll tell you that winning that challenge was not as exciting as it sounds. But I definitely learned that anything that I start, I need to finish. And I'll always appreciate that. It's something I'll keep for the rest of my life. So I just want to thank my grandfather for being an amazing grandfather and teaching me so many wonderful things. And I love you.
I'd like to invite friend Todd Brady.
Is that all right? Okay. My name's Todd Brady, and I'm a very close family friend of the Dinells. And I'm the youngest of 5 Irish Catholic boys. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. My mother was always the most important person in my life. I looked very much up to her. She was a daughter of the Depression. I was fortunate enough to meet Jerry Dinell in 2003 and start working with him and his family. I'll never forget after that first meeting with Jerry. I lived up on the north side of the city, so meeting a client down the south side sometimes took like half a day. And I was driving home after meeting with Jerry, and I'm like, there's something really unique about this individual. Very unique. I couldn't quite put it together back then. I was single when I met Jerry. I'm here to tell everybody in this room, Jerry had an ear. He had an ear to always listen. See, anything that came out of my mouth, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot of garbage that's come out of my mouth over the decades. But Jerry always listened. And Jerry always offered very simple, but very meaningful advice. I subsequently got married. I was scared to death about getting married. So our quarterly business meetings turned into sessions where Jerry became my therapist. And I was the student and he was the teacher. And I would listen about marriage. And I would listen to stories. Like when he first got married, he lived in a small apartment in New York City with his wife. And I think they lived with like 2 or 3 other couples, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment. And the way he described it to me, I'm like, I couldn't live there for a day, and you lived there for a year? Wow. I'm now the father of 2 boys, And I never had the opportunity to introduce my two boys to Jerry, and that's something I always really wanted to do. But most importantly, Jerry gave me the strength and the arms to put in my toolbox to be the best possible father I could be. All I had to do was listen to Jerry Dinell. His three girls were everything to him. I would beg him to spend some money on some clothes, his wardrobe. But Jerry was like my mother. They were children of the Depression, and money meant nothing to them. But they were both very, well off financially, but money meant nothing to them. And to the day that Jerry Dinell died, it never did. I want to thank you, Bonnie and Judy. I want to thank the Dinell family. I want to thank all of you. I'm better prepared in the middle of June 2024 to carry on all the good that Jerry Dinell has brought to me and my family in a crazy world. Thank you.
It's customary to look to the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, our sacred text, to help us talk about the life of a loved one we've lost. We look at the weekly reading that is read on the Sabbath in synagogue, gives us kind of predictability in an upside-down time. Looking at that weekly reading, we find the eternal values that shaped the life of the one that we lost. Help us to talk about them. We also find surprising connections that can help us feel a sense of comfort, as if this portion that we are looking at, it's beshert, it's meant to be. And that's certainly the case here. The title of this week's portion, Naso, is Hebrew for census, counting, numbers. You can see the connection right there in the title. For a man like Jerry, who taught geometry in the Merchant Marines, though in all his humility would say just he taught men their left from their right, and famously did complex math in his head on the showroom floor. And that is just the beginning, the surface of the connection. The census is taken of all the adult males, of the Levites who are called for sacred service. That service, their job, was to dismantle, carry, and reassemble the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary. Each family within the tribe of Levi was responsible for specific parts of the tabernacle. The family of Gershon, the screens, the cloths, the coverings; of Merari, the posts, sockets, pegs, and cords; of Kohat, the altar, the vessels, the Ark of the Covenant. These few details about the portion that I've just shared with you really say it all. And I want to, I guess pun intended, Jerry's name, unpack it. If you listen closely, you recognize that these details tell us the story of the way in which furniture resided at the heart of our worship. The Ark of the Covenant, a strange artifact. We all know what it looks like, that golden box with these winged figures top it. What is that? Why do we have that? Well, in ancient times, a king had a throne, and on that high throne, the king needed a footstool, an ottoman, if you will. That Ark of the Covenant was God's furniture. And the details we learn is all about the assembly and schlepping of holy furniture. In fact, if you put these details together, a mobile center of these sacred furniture with an altar, a sacred grill for cooking meat, it checks all the boxes for Jerry, right? Wandering around, wanderlust. This man loved to travel, whether it was to exotic places like India or China, or just to get corn from Indiana, the right corn, or the cheapest gas, or a restaurant. He'd think nothing of driving an hour out of the way. Or if maybe he was visiting you in San Francisco or the Bay Area and you turned your back for a second, he was gone. That's just how he was, a wandering Jew. Of course, furniture, check. And that sacred grill for cooking meat, food. Jerry always knew the blessed place. Any kind of food you wanted, he knew it. Stopping off at home every night, or once a week at least, for the best hot dogs at the right hot dog stand, and later on soggy fries, which were the best fries when he got them. All of that. Jerry was a man who, as we heard, appreciated the value of working smart, not hard, who took comfort in the order and solvable nature of crossword puzzles, even just the arrangement, such right angles. He would have liked this portion with all the order and the direction that we're given for these tasks. And the fact that this obligation for all this work rests squarely upon the men's shoulder also resonates. In Jerry's world, as I think we got a sense, men had a special responsibility. They were called to serve. And so he was hard on them. He instilled in them a sense of the responsibility they had, and that they should work hard to support the women around them, not support that they should be sheltered, but support these women, to allow these women who, in his estimation, were smarter and more creative, to allow them to take flight, guided by the model of his beloved wife, an artist who was way out of his league. He always liked to brag about the fact that he put 4 women through college, his 3 daughters and his wife. And further proof that these women were not just on a pedestal, he also took in, or she saw the need and filled it, his daughter Bonnie, who worked by his side long hours, though also an artist in her own right. We see in this accounting a sense of legacy, of lineage, one generation to the next. Also, for an orphan like Jerry, who lost his mother at age 4 and bounced around orphanages, this would have meant so much to him, and did mean so much to him, to create a legacy, to be a patriarch, and to see the generations come after him. As the family all attests, he loved them all, but his great-granddaughter Tova held a special place in his heart, a sign that he, who came from nothing, left behind a name, a legacy. And people, the Levites, they served for the sake of the community. And the tabernacle, it resided at the heart of the community, literally. It was the center. When the Israelites all put down stakes to camp anywhere in the desert, they oriented themselves around that tabernacle. All the other tribes were arrayed around it. And Jerry, he always saw it as his responsibility to take care of his community. It started with those who worked for him, who were truly like family. He was a surrogate father to many, including those who worked for him. And while it started there, his view was far more expansive, stretching out to the entire neighborhood. In 1997, when his store burnt down in a neighborhood that had long since been the commercial center that had made Steel City Furniture a success, the family debated whether to rebuild or not. And maddeningly, Jerry insisted he had to rebuild. He was a pillar in that community, and he owed it to the people around him to remain, and so he did. It's interesting to think of this furniture that was the center of worship. It occurs to me that there are two other crucial notes about Jerry and his life that we can see there. First, the artistry that was there. He was the labor going into making things happen, but his wife, the women around him, they created the artistry that made the tabernacle so beautiful. And if we think about the predictability and the order that went into its building, what it was geared towards, the spiritual life of the community, that spontaneity, who knows when the moment will seize them, when in the worship, that spirit will come down. Jerry had his own version of that. He loved to gamble. A man who created order in his life and predictability. He found that spontaneity. He found ways to experience that on his own. And I just want to say a personal note as I was listening to the speakers and thinking of all that the family, I was blessed to have them share with me about Jerry, who I unfortunately did not know myself. Just share a personal note about getting to know his family, his daughters who are members, Judy, who clearly has the sweetness, the heart of gold, as does Bonnie. And Bonnie, who I've had the good fortune to interact with a great deal, also has that rough edge. You don't want to challenge Bonnie, right? She's gonna hold her ground, and you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn, and I've learned. And I'm a better rabbi for it, and I feel fortunate. Back to that title. Now, right? It means, in an abstract way, counting, but literally, where the word comes from is a word whose root is to elevate. And I suppose the counting comes from the people are elevated. They come forward and you count them. So appropriate for Jerry. To count people by raising them up. He raised up those around him, both in the sense of a parent who raises children, but also in the sense of putting faith in others, of being hard on them, because for everyone who he cared about, he saw the best in them shining through, just waiting to come out. And over time, he supported them so that they could raise themselves up and be counted and do the important work, the sacred work that they were put on this earth to do. All thanks to Jerry. May his memory always be for a blessing. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember Jerry. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we remember Jerry. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember Jerry. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember Jerry. So long as we live, he too shall live. For he is now a part of us as we remember Jerry. In a moment, I'll ask you to rise as I chant the funeral liturgy, El Maleh Rachamim. In this prayer, we express our wish that the soul of the one we've lost, that Jerry's soul be bound up in the souls of the living. And this wish, it's really our North Star, our guiding principle. In Judaism, we believe that whatever wishes we put out into the world, we have the power to bring to fruition, to bring to life. So as I just spoke of remembering Jerry, whenever we gather together and share memories, starting today and for as long as we live, he will be with us. So we have to continue sharing those memories, because when we do, his soul will be bound up with ours in the world of the living. And his memory will always be for a blessing. As you're able, I ask you to please rise. El Maleh Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamtze Minucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Uteorim, Kezohar Harakia, Mazhirim et nishmat Emanuel ben Arthur Vebel she'alach leolamo. Bal harachamim yastireu בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר, and we say, Amen. May be seated.
Okay. This concludes the service at the sanctuary here today. The interment will take place at Beverly Cemetery. Following the interment, all of the friends are invited to a luncheon at Scrimani's Restaurant in Stager. Further Shiva details will be at the Vivian and Barry Zimmerman residence Saturday at 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. with a minion at 8:30 p.m. And then Tuesday, here back at the congregation from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. with a minion at 7 p.m. If you'll be joining us in procession today, we'll be lining up in the parking lot. I ask that you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker and a magnetic flag to go on top of your car. Please turn on your bright headlights and hazards and stay in your parking space. We'll get everybody into the line with our staff. As we make our way to the cemetery, please follow the car in front of you as safely as you can. If we do go through a red light, please proceed with caution and use your horn liberally. At this time, I will ask everyone to please rise and the pallbearers to come forward as we escort Jerry's casket, family, and the rabbi from the sanctuary.